The title of my speech tonight is What is Water? What is Water? By Robbie Green. A pelican soaring over the salty sea spotted a fish and yelled down, "How's the water today?" And that fish swimming along looked up at the pelican, confused and skeptical, and said, "What is water?" Fellow Toastmasters, we all have blind spots. Things that are so close to us and so personal that we don't even realize they're there, like water to a fish. And it takes getting ourselves out of the environment and getting a different perspective to even realize what makes us up, like water makes up a fish. To have what I call a ripcord moment. I call it a ripcord moment because I went skydiving one time, jumped out of the airplane, accelerated to 120 miles an hour. The wind was roaring past my face. Every loose shred of clothing flapped violently in the wind as I descended to the earth. It came time for me to pull my ripcord. I reached down. Boom. I was yanked upward as I watched this big, colorful canopy blossom above me. And in that moment, I felt peace. And it was a piece of two parts. The first was that sigh of relief. Mom was wrong, and I'm not going to smack into the ground at 120 miles an hour. But the second was a piece I never would have expected skydiving. The second was a piece of a deep, echoing silence. You see, here on the surface of the earth, we're surrounded by noise. You may think you're sitting in a silent room right now, but if you listen carefully, you may start to hear ticking of a clock, the hum of an air conditioner, birds chirping outside. This world is very noisy, and there was none of that 5,000 feet in the air. It took the silence of skydiving for me to even realize how noisy this world is. And it got me wondering, what else am I blinded to? What else is so close to me that I don't even realize it's there, like water to a fish? Having traveled the world, I know culture to be just like that. Culture, you're born into it. It makes you up, but you can't even perceive that it's there. And it takes a different perspective to even realize what makes you up. I learned in college that Westerners, and specifically Americans, obsess with choices. But it never made sense to me because it was so close. And the irony was, I'd walk up in the cafe at college, put my money down at the cafe and say, "I'd like an iced mocha cafe macchiato, half calf, deep salted caramel," and I got this highly customized cup of coffee. Every last nuance of it was a choice that I made. And I didn't even realize that perhaps I am obsessed with choice. Until finally, years later, I had a ripcord moment. I was given a work assignment with a gentleman named Nick Patel. Nick had recently immigrated from India, and I knew two things about Nick before I even met him. The first was that he was a great technician, very good to work with. The second was that he was kind, too kind, to the point where he never said no to anyone, and people took advantage of him. They would give their work to him, and he would do it happily. And I've traveled the world myself. I know what it's like to desperately want to fit in. And I set out, I was going to be a friend to Nick. I was going to bridge a relationship between me and Nick. We were given a work assignment. We met that day. I'd never met him before, but I knew his reputation. We shook hands, and it was miserable hot. The assignment was this big, dusty warehouse in the middle of July with no windows and no air conditioning. And as we shook hands, we look out over the parking lot to this big, dusty building, and we see the heat rippling up in waves off the asphalt. At 7 in the morning, we knew it was going to be a hot day. We buckled right in, got to work. I started on my machine. He started on his, and I got done just a tiny bit earlier than he did. And I thought, this is my chance. This is my chance to bridge that relationship. I called over to Nick, casual, if I could. I'm going to grab something from the vending machine. You want anything? Nick looked up from the machine he was concentrating on, processed the words that I said, and this huge, beaming smile came over his face. He knew what was going on. He said, yes, I would love something, thank you. And I mirrored his enthusiasm. I said, great, what can I get you, Nick? And he yelled back to me, it doesn't matter. And fellow Toastmasters, I was lost. I looked over at the vending machines, 2 vending machines full of drinks, and each one of them was calling out to me. We have Coke products and Pepsi products, caffeinated, carbonated, sports drinks, water drinks. Nick, I can't make this choice for you. Boom. That was my ripcord moment. You see, as the words left my mouth, I realized what had happened. The noise of all of those choices was silenced by the beauty and simplicity of Nick's response. Nick's response was very simply, it's hot and I'm thirsty. I would love a cool drink from a new fruit. It didn't have to be more complicated than that. I was trying to impose my cultural preferences onto Nick. Now, the beauty of that story is simultaneously, I understood Nick's perspective and I finally understood mine. My challenge to you is go seek different people, different places, travel the world, but don't just seek to experience different people and places. Seek to understand them. And my promise to you is that when you do, you'll not only understand the world around you better, you'll understand yourself better and what water is to you. Thank you, Toastmasters.